this live broadcast. It is 5:59 on Friday the 9th of October. My name's Jamie Lowe. It's good to have you here with me today. Now, today what I wanted to do to come on line perhaps to speak to you all with is Hypo-Awareness Week. I believe Jon-sel, who is joining me on this live, is just joining up. Here he is. Hello, Jon-sel.
I'm here.
Here he is. How's it going? Are you okay?
I'm all right, Jamie. I think my blood sugar is actually heading into hypo territory, so if the alarm goes off, don't worry.
Well, I mean, the health worries aside, what a perfect way to start celebrating Hypo Week. So let's cover the ground rules first off, because a lot of people will be hearing the term hypo for the first time ever. So, Jon-sel, seen as, you know, you're the man in the know here, you are the king of hypos, you've got hypo on your shirt in front of you. Tell us, what is a hypo?
So basically, someone that isn't diabetic, their blood sugars can range from, say, 4 to 7, but they can also have hypos. It happens. You know, hypoglycemia can affect anybody. But with type 1 diabetics, the thing is, our blood sugars can go from 1.4 right through the roof to about 22, 25, 35. It's a balancing act. So when a type 1 diabetic gets a blood sugar result, say 3.9, 4, anything below, they need sugar to bring them back to normality. And the scary thing is that people don't realize this, is that if you leave it, you're going to go get a little bit worse for wear, and the longer the bigger risk you have of going into a diabetic coma. And if you don't get it treated, this is horrible. People don't like to hear this, but you can die. It's a very serious subject matter.
So the point of Hypo-Awareness Week is to really bust some myths about the condition, type 1 diabetes, and, you know, the other types of diabetes, which all, you know, have the potential to suffer from hypos too. So that's what this week is all about. It's about busting some myths, spreading some knowledge and education. So if you come across somebody who you believe is type 1 diabetic or diabetic in any of the other capacities having a hypo, then maybe you'll know what to do. Because, you know, it's good to know these sorts of things, because when a diabetic person is quite severely hypo, all they need pretty much is quite a substantial amount of outside help. So Jon-sel touched on it there. A hypo is where someone's blood sugar drops below 4 mmol, which is 4 millimoles per litre. So that isn't just a specific case to people with diabetes. You know, your average person without type 1 diabetes or any of the other kinds of diabetes can too have a hypo, but your body is quite good at regulating your insulin needs and your blood sugar level. So you won't necessarily need to do much at all. You might feel a bit woozy. You might need to have a snack or something like that. But if someone like me or Jon-sel with type 1 diabetes has a hypo, that is potentially quite a serious medical condition. And the reason that I invited Jon-sel on HAPS today to talk about Hypo-Awareness Week is because, like I mentioned it before, Jon-sel is the king of hypos. Just take a look at his Twitter account, and he documents his hypos almost daily. So, Jon-sel,
yes.
I think what we should start is by telling people what a hypo feels like. So, seeing as you're so accustomed to having them, how do you know that a hypo is coming on?
Well, the thing is, I've suffered with hypo unawareness for the past 10 years, and this is where you get no symptoms at all. And this is why it's been so dangerous and deadly. But before the unawareness hit my life, everyone suffers with different symptoms. Weak-legged, sweating. I mean, sweating when your blood sugar goes really low is a big sign. I mean, I was at the cinema a few weeks ago, and my friend luckily realized something was going on, and it looked like I'd actually wet my pants because it was that bad. And I was deluded, I was jaded, I was swearing. And this is why many people get scared, is because when someone keeps coming out with abusive remarks, they think, well, this guy's drunk, he's obviously not correct in the head. So you're forever judged. And luckily tonight, I've got a friend who's with me who saved me about a month ago when I was hypo. It's the first time he's ever witnessed something like that, and it opened his eyes. He wasn't aware what was going on. But they can range. Like I say, mood swings. You feel like you're you're drunk, you slur your words, you don't know what you're saying. It's a mixed bag, and like I said, we're all affected differently by it. But for me, I get abusive. I convulse. My head twitches to one side. It scares people. So I can see why some people will run away from that situation. But I'm lucky to have a close-knit support group that know what's going on, and they try their very best to give me sugar when I need it. Yes, I would be lying if I said it didn't. I mean, I've had partners leave me because they couldn't handle it. I've lost my professional football contract because I had a hypo. I've lost jobs because of my hypos. I've been judged by others because I've had hypos. Yeah, I've been judged my entire life. I mean, the good thing with me, I have a strong head upon my shoulders. I won't allow anyone to bully me or treat me very badly. But the sad thing is that not everybody has the strength to stand up for themselves. And I know a majority would just take it and go, "Oh God, yeah, I shouldn't be having hypos. Can't help it." But I have my whole life. My whole life is a hypo. I mean, that's the way I look at it. I've got a phobia of high blood sugar, and I don't like having high blood sugar. Hence why I'm always low. But hypos have been the bane of my life. I've learned to deal with them, adjust to them. But the thing is, if it wasn't for constant glucose monitoring, I'd be dead. I mean, this year I nearly lost my life. Last year I nearly lost my life. It's something I've got to get to grips with more so. I'm not the most perfect diabetic, but it's an incredibly scary thing. And I put on a brave face. Everybody thinks that, oh, he's smiling. He takes the mick out of it. So it's all right to have hypos. It isn't. That's how I deal with it.
Mm-hmm. I mean, in terms of my experience, I've lived with type 1 diabetes for 5 years this month. And hypos I don't suffer with them as severely as Jon-sel. I do suffer with quite severe hypo symptoms. So I have something, especially when I have a hypo in the nighttime, something called a hypo hangover. So I'll absolutely be drained. I'll have headaches, fatigue. And I think that's a bit of the sugar crash too, because obviously when you have a hypo, you have to treat them with carbohydrate. And sometimes, especially when you have them at night, it's quite difficult to stop yourself from treating them when you have them. Just going to say hello to some of the people watching. So if you are watching, please use that comment box below. Help us spread the Hypo Awareness Week message by sharing this live video. But hello to Sina, who is one of my viewers on TikTok. Hello to Pablo de la Hoya, who is watching in Los Angeles. And a question for you, Jon-sel, from Marcel, who asks, why is he not wearing a sensor? Which, you know, your sensor like your technology.
Hidden. So this is my blood sugar, and then on this arm I'm like Robo Turk. So basically I'm like a robot, but obviously they're more intelligent than me. And then in this one here we have my Omnipod. If I can get that into the camera. Oh, there we are. That's my insulin. That gets delivered there. I'm loaded up, and I happily show it off all the time. People will stare, people will look, but people need to be educated. And I know that some people are very funny about showing off their goods, but and also, Marcel, not everyone is lucky enough to have sensors. I'm grateful because of the NHS in the United Kingdom that I've been given the chance to wear it. People can't afford it. I've got friends in Japan, they can't afford it. In Turkey, it's awful. If you have a sensor, you can afford it, and you get given it, and you can use one, you're incredibly lucky, because not everyone is lucky enough to be put in that situation.
And just touching on technology there, hypos have become less so. Sorry, I think there's a bit of echo. I think you might be a bit too loud. You have to turn down your speakers, Jon-sel.
Of course I can, mate. Let's have a look. Is that better? Is that better?
Yeah, something coming from somewhere. Oh, maybe it's my computer. Right. So glad I got that sorted out. Talking about technology. That is something that's really helped me get my hypos under control. So what I use is an insulin pump, which if I just show that off here is there. That's my insulin pump, which goes into my back. And then I too, like Jon-sel, have a sensor, a different type of sensor, but a sensor nonetheless in my arm, which is just there. I've got a Freestyle Libre, and Jon-sel is using the Dexcom. And what this all helps me to do is to see where my blood sugar is going. So if I know, my sensor can tell me that my blood sugar is dropping quite quickly, I can use all the information that I have to hand in order for me to avoid that potential hypo or that incoming hypo. So for someone like Jon-sel with quite bad hypo unawareness, so for someone whose body doesn't always give them the signs that there's a hypo on the way, this medical technology is literally life-saving. But take us back, Jon-sel, to before you were sort of bestowed with this equipment. What was it like dealing with severe hypos and hypo unawareness?
My life was hell, and it really was. I mean, I did very nearly lose my life a selection of times. 4 years ago, it was my birthday. I'd gone out, I'd been drinking, and like I said, I've got a phobia towards having high blood sugar. So I'd give myself, I always check my blood sugar when I'm out. So checking blood sugar, I'm having an espresso martini, it's got sugar in it, I'll give myself more insulin. So it was a fine balance. I was drunk. I left, I had no hypo symptoms at all. I ended up in the back of an ambulance and I'd woke up, but luckily someone had passed me by at 2 o'clock in the morning. They found me in a ditch. They thought I was convulsing and they thought I was having a heart attack. But luckily, because of my diabetic band I've got on my wrist, they could see I was diabetic. They called 999. I was saved. But in a situation like that, if no one had seen me, I would be dead. I wouldn't be here. And it was just happening all the time because I was getting no symptoms. I could be not having an alcoholic beverage. I'd go out, I'd eat. Suddenly a hypo would hit, I'd leave and I'd just faint, I'd pass out. And this is a scary thing. Sensors, CGMs will save lives. And if you have hypos very badly, same with high blood sugar, where you can get diabetic ketoacidosis, you need to keep a monitor. So if it wasn't for my Dexcom, I honestly don't know if I'd still be alive to this day. And I send all my hypos up, of course I do, because that's how I deal with it. But it's a scary thing, and people still don't understand the whole, the reasoning behind hypoglycemia and why people behave like that. And this is why education needs to be raised in such a positive fashion, because my mother, she's type 1, she had a hypo about 2 years ago. She was on a bench, she was shaking, and she couldn't open her dextrose, and people were passing by, and she was going, please help. They thought she was a drunken woman. And my mum was in tears because she just wanted help. And this is the thing. I don't mean this type 2 diabetes is bad if it's not looked after correctly, but everyone seems to think that type 2 is type 1. They are very, very different. And like I say, with hypoglycemia, awareness needs to be raised, because I, for one, have suffered with it and have suffered with it. So I know exactly what it's like to go through such a strenuous time.
Absolutely, and it's really good to have you here on Hacks tonight, Jon-sel, to just sort of share your story and help people understand a little bit of the gravity of the situation here. Got a few comments I'm going to read. Peter Bittner says there's not enough awareness. Absolutely. Sonia is watching from Puerto Rico. Hello to Sonia. Thank you very much for tuning in tonight. Work and Play07 says my girlfriend is type 1, trying to get her Dexcom. I feel for you dudes. It's not easy. Keep on trucking. Thank you very much for your comment.
Yeah.
Another one here from Marcel, who says, so are you looking forward to the next Omnipod generation? Now, without being a bit too jargony, what Marcel is talking about here is a different version of an insulin pump, which I showed you before. So the next stage in diabetes management technology is insulin pumps, which are a closed loop system, which taking information from sensors, like the one that I have on my arm and the one that Jon-sel has, to taking information from that, and then effectively the insulin pump acting like a pancreas. So just to take things really back to basics, type 1 diabetes is a condition where our pancreases do not produce insulin, which is a hormone which helps you metabolize your food and store energy from food, all that sort of stuff. So that's what our bodies don't do, and that's what we rely on medical technology to do. Sonia says, keep healthy. I wish you the best. Thank you very much, Sonia. Now, one of the main reasons that I invited Jon-sel on perhaps this evening to discuss Hypo Awareness Week is because Jon-sel has been banging the drum of diabetes awareness since long before I was even diagnosed and knew what type 1 diabetes was. So Jon-sel, just give us a rundown on what you've been doing for the past many years to spread awareness of type 1 diabetes.
I had a dream about 10, 15 years ago that I'd write a book for children, because no books have been done for kids. You suddenly You get diagnosed, jargon gets spieled out, you don't understand what's going on. I remember when I was diagnosed, I just went, yeah. You don't understand the harsh reality of what can happen if you don't look after yourself. So I said, do you know what? What I've done, I mean, I've been grateful and I'm lucky enough to have been a professional footballer, been a pop star, I'm an actor. I've done normal jobs as well to keep myself afloat. So I've done it all. I've had ignorance in every single profession I've done, and sharing those experiences, and I'm happy to speak about them. I'm a very, very proud person. I don't care what people think. It doesn't bother me in terms of my health condition. So I said, okay, I'm going to write a book. So the first thing was I wrote a book called Diabetes Won't Defeat Us, which was like a self-help guide for kids and for teens, even for adults, just to give them a little boost they need. Because sometimes people hear things, especially when they're at school, from young kids, oh, you're a drug addict, you're injecting yourself, oh, you shouldn't be doing that. And the way I've been raised by my mum and dad is, no. You inject in public, you test your blood sugar in public. It doesn't matter what people think. You need to survive, so you do what's necessary for you. And with that, and what I've been through in my life, I went, do you know what? I'm going to write a play. So I did a one-man show called Keep Calm, I'm Only Diabetic. And that was based on my whole life story of when I was sacked from my football contract, and when I was diagnosed, my pop career, the ups and downs, my mother, her type 1 diabetes, the harsh effects it's had on her. And it was to raise inspiration. It was to put a funny aspect into it so people realize that you haven't got to be down in the dumps. You've got to pick yourself up. And then from there, my biggest dream ever was to do a film about what I'd been through in Turkey when I got sacked from my professional football contract. And still to this day, I'm still deeply cut by it because no one understood. No one's ever said to me, God, that was really out of order what happened to you. And that's because of the character that I have. I was like, yeah, that's fine. It doesn't bother me. So I did a film called Hypo, which is based on the experience I went through when I was sacked from my contract. And luckily, it's gone on Amazon Prime. It's done really well. And I'm taken back by it because the whole idea is to inspire people. Some people haven't liked it, and that's because it's honest. And many people are honest about type 1. They seem to think that you can't mention the harsh things, that if you don't look after yourself, you can go blind, you can lose a limb, you can have heart disease. It happens. And unfortunately, I'd rather know about that than not know about it. And so with the film, I have, it's my life story, but also has live hypo footage in it of me having hypos. I wanted to get that across. And then with that, I've done another book based on my show. So I've basically been plugging everything I've done in my life. I'm a big spokesperson for Diabetes UK and JDRF. And the main thing is I just want to be the people's champion of type 1 diabetes, because I don't feel enough people get their words across in the right way. And what I've been through, I've been knocked back, but I'm still here 32 years on, being a type 1 diabetic. I'm still alive. I'm incredibly healthy. No problems. I've had ups and downs. I'm not perfect, but I'm still here. So it goes to show that no matter what, type 1 should not be used as something where you feel you can't go and chase your dreams. I'm the perfect example that you can do whatever you want. Sorry, man. The thing is, Marcel, I know I've got many diabetic friends who drink, and it's always down to you as an individual what you want to do. I've made many mistakes when drinking, where I've given myself too much insulin. And if I'm being honest with you, it's better to run high than low when you've been drinking, because alcohol will bring your blood sugars down. If you drink, listen, be careful. If you have a bad day and you want to have a few drinks, do it. You're a human being. Check your blood, just be careful. And the biggest thing that I always did, no matter how drunk I've got in my life, and I've had crazy nights, is never forget your insulin. Just remember, your insulin is your life-saving juice. If you forget an injection, don't worry about it. It just means the day after, you're going to have a very hard day. You're going to have a bit of a temper tantrum. You've got high blood sugar. It can be corrected. Just never be harsh on yourself for the mistakes you make. Because you know what? You're a human being. You're going to make mistakes. No type 1 diabetic is perfect. There never will be. We make mistakes, and from those mistakes, we learn. So for you, Marcel, do what's right for you. Check your blood sugars. if you want to drink, have a drink, just be careful, but don't do what I've done and give yourself too much insulin, because that is the biggest mistake you can make. And because having hypos when you're drunk, people will think you're drunk. So live your life, do what's right for you, but just check your blood sugar and make sure you're doing everything right. And if you want to run high for a while. It isn't the end of the world.
Fantastic. Thanks for that, Jon-sel. Now, Jon-sel mentioned a little earlier on his one-man stand-up sort of show, Keep Calm, I'm Only a Diabetic. I'm going to play you a little trailer for that because I'm obviously having a couple of issues with my camera right now. So why don't you guys take a look at that and then we'll be back in just a few moments.
Jamie, the sound's gone. I can't hear you. Sound. It's got the sound. The sound's gone. Yeah, no sound. Not at the moment. Sound.
Oh, you're talking about me, my sound.
Yeah, I can now hear you. I can now hear you.
Fantastic. I thought you were about your sound.
No, I can hear. Let's go.
Still working on that second camera. But what I was saying was that was Jon-sel performing Keep Calm, I'm Only Diabetic, the Diabetes UK HQ, and he went around touring that performance all over the country. And he didn't stop there in terms of his goal to be the pin-up boy for diabetes. So you've mentioned it previously, Jon-sel, the film Hypo.
Now, it was many sort of years in the making. Am I right in thinking it might have been quite a difficult project to get off the ground initially?
No, I mean, it was something I always wanted to do. I tried to get funding. People wouldn't fund it because it's diabetes, and people are very ignorant still to this day towards type 1. Everyone thinks that type 1 is type 2. People treat it as a taboo subject. They won't talk about it. So it was hard, but it was my dream to get it off the ground because no one has ever done a film that features type 1 diabetes as in depth as I have done and with what I feature. And it's a true story. So it's coming from a type 1 diabetic. And I know when people in film and TV do mention things about type 1 diabetes, they get all the information wrong. So it was a struggle. I didn't get the funding. So I ended up putting £10,000 of my own money into making it happen. I've made no money from it. It's one of those things, but my dream has been done. My story is there. I put it out there. And you know what? You have to take risks, and I've always taken risks. So for me, doing that and getting such a great team involved, everyone worked for free. I had some star-studded actors from UK, the UK business who've been on the BBC. We all worked together. Everyone believed in the story. And you know what? I'm so glad that I did it. Not everyone's going to like it, but I did it, and I'm so happy and so proud of what we managed to achieve. Well, the film got pulled from a selection of festivals all around the world, which was really gut-wrenching. But this isn't just Hypo, it's other films that have obviously been pulled because this is what's happened because of the pandemic. Luckily, as we're suddenly coming now towards the end of the year, we've been nominated for a fair few Best Drama Short Awards. We came fifth out of 100 films in a Turkish film festival, which was great, which I was really grateful for. Over 6,000 people could see that. That was live online. We've got a film festival coming up soon, and there'll be a live streaming of it, which I'll post on my socials, for the London Rocks Film Festival, which is brilliant. So we've still got we're still waiting on a couple more things, but next year, the festivals got pulled this year, it's going to be showing next year. So that journey will progress. I'll always keep promoting it, but it's sometimes those knockbacks happen for a good reason. So we'll see. We'll see where it goes.
Well, let's see a bit of the film, actually. I've got the trailer here. So this is Hypo by Jon-sel Gourkan, a film which was many years in the making, but I think was definitely worth all the effort. Well, that was Hypo there by Jon-sel Gourkan, a really good film, and I would really sort of encourage you to check it out if you can. So, Jon-sel, what's next for the film? Obviously, you know, it's having a bit of trouble getting out there and getting to film festivals, but you're doing your best, aren't you?
Doing my absolute best. Like I say, Amazon Prime, it's only available in the UK and USA. I'm trying to get it to other areas in the world. I mean, luckily, because I have like a private link, I've been sending it to people in Japan. So those people that can't see it at the moment and they live in countries such as that aren't in the UK, the USA, send me a message on my socials. I'll try and get the film to you because I want to spread it worldwide because there's so much ignorance in so many countries. Like I say, in Turkey, it's still very bad. I know in Abu Dhabi, it's not as great. You know, there's countries that don't get it. They don't understand it. Even in the UK, people still don't get it. They're a little bit more sort of like intelligent towards it. In the USA as well. I mean, we're lucky here in England. In America, what they have to go through with lack of insulin, I don't know how they survive. So it's tough, man. Diabetes is such a health condition which is looked at in such a derogatory fashion. People don't get it, don't understand it. And I think the more that we as a community keep doing our best to get word out there, to promote and to raise awareness with it, we'll succeed in the long run. It just takes time.
Fantastic. So, I mean, it's out now. It's on Amazon Prime. It's quite easy to find, isn't it? People just literally search Hypo the film. They'll be
just stick Hypo the film in and it's there, yeah.
Okay, so what I think we should do is bust some myths about Hypo, since Hypo Awareness Week is basic. That's literally what it's here for. So the first thing is something that we've actually touched on before. You can have a hypo. You can only have a hypo if you're diabetic, which of course, Jon-sel, that's not true, is it?
Absolute lies. I mean, before I was diabetic, I remember I was 9 years old, 10 years old. I was weak in the legs. I needed sugar. I didn't know I needed sugar. I just felt weak. And then when getting diagnosed with diabetes and I was having a hypo, I went, this is the same feeling I've had before. You get it, lack of sugar in your system, your energy levels are low. Anyone can get hypoglycemia. It happens. It's the fact that type 1s, and because of our insulin, giving ourselves too much, not eating enough to cover ourselves, we've got obviously the chance to go hypo more often than your average person.
Second myth to bust then, Jon-sel, is when someone is having a hypo, you should give them insulin.
The most don't, and that's what I mean. People seem to think this is the case. Oh, it's your medication. We'll give you a jab. Never, ever, 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 ever inject a type 1 diabetic with insulin. They might have fainted because of having high blood sugar. Still, do not inject them. Do not take that risk. You call 999. Always call 999 in a state of stress or panic. Never inject insulin. But if you understand type 1, someone's fainted, they've got a tag on that says type 1 diabetic, you take that risk, give them sugar. But you can usually tell if someone's hypo and they're not hypo because of the way their body is, the way they are. But always call 999 if you're unsure.
I think it's important to say, I mean, if the person with diabetes is, you know, they're able to communicate and they can converse with you, then they will probably be able to tell you quite easily what to do. And 9 times out of 10, it will be just get me a can of Coke or a Mars bar. So that's, and we will often have those with us. So if you see someone with a type 1 diabetic medical, what do you call it? Medical
band.
Like a medical band. Then that is what we need. We often need sugar. Marcel's asked the question, how is that in the UK? I live in Germany and I get all my stuff for free from my insurance. I'm so happy about that. I think a lot of people just die because they can't afford the stuff. So, I mean, like Jon-sel has described so far today, a lot of our stuff, all of our stuff pretty much, is on the NHS, and we're very grateful for that. But there are other parts of the world where insulin security is not something that's so widespread. And I mean, Jon-sel, I don't know if you know many people around the globe with type 1 diabetes. Could you describe a little bit about insulin insecurity in different areas?
Loads. I mean, it honestly, it breaks my heart because we all moan about having diabetes at times. Oh, I'm having a bad day. God, you've got to understand, some countries you're looked after very, very well. I speak to a lot of American guys, and it absolutely destroys me how people ration insulin. They can't afford it, the cost. I've spoken to a guy in Azerbaijan. They're ignorant towards it. He wishes he could have a pump. He can hardly afford his insulin. I had a message from a guy in Japan the other day who'd seen hypo. He was just such a lovely guy, and he went, my insurance won't cover me to get a Dexcom. It just makes you realize just how lucky you are if you get things for free. Not everyone is as lucky. So you imagine living in somewhere like Afghanistan, Kenya. There are diabetics all around the world, and unfortunately, people are clueless to it. So if you do have good healthcare and you get these things for free, always remember, be grateful, because someone else is in a far worse off situation than you.
Fantastic. Thanks for that, Jon-sel. So we've got a question here for you from Sonia, who says, does Jon-sel have Twitter?
Sonia, I have indeed. My username is, I remember it, T1 Showbiz Shizzle. Or Showbiz Shiz.
You know what, I can post the link to your Twitter in the chat. I'll find it now.
Thank you, mate.
So, Jon-sel, just quickly, just talk us through the last hypo that you had. What was it like? What happened? Where were you?
Do you know what? I'm with the guy here now who saved me. Do you want to have a word with him? I can get him in. He saved me.
Yeah, go on. Let's
William.
hear about it.
This is my good friend Will. I was having, it was my birthday weekend. I'd been a bit.
How you doing? All right.
My mental health had been all over the shop. It's been a bit hard this year, and I was acting a bit weird and doolally. I'd gone a bit weak, and Will explain the situation. That's what happened.
We'd literally gone out for, I think, a beer.
A beer.
And we left the pub, and Jon-sel, you probably noticed, he can be really hyperactive. He's full of life all of the time. So when he started getting really aggressive, I thought he was just in a bad mood. I thought he was maybe having a tough time. I'd never sort of dealt with it myself before. And we sort of walk around the corner, and he just falls to the floor, starts sort of convulsing, and then he just goes very still after that. I got him some Lucozade and was sort of pouring it in his face, and he started to come around, but it took about 10 minutes. I remember the chap who owns the business that I work for walks past at this point, sort of starts grinning at me, and thinks that Jon-sel's just drunk on the floor. Little did he know, he was in a really, really bad way.
No, it wasn't. But you know what? It's awful saying this. I'm so used to them, but when they're like that, it makes me realise just how lucky I am to still be here. And I always say that. I've had so many close shaves with ambulances, friends saving me. Sometimes luck isn't always on your side, and I'm so grateful to have had that luck. And every day you live is a learning experience. So I know what I've got to do. Do I always do it? No, I don't. I'm a human being. We make mistakes, but it's tough. This year has been very tough because of COVID. My mental health's been all over the shop. I've had a lot going on in my life, and that can happen with diabetes, burnout as well. So it all amounts to one thing. But the thing I've always say now, always carry sugar with you. I sometimes don't do that. I'm naughty, but that's a saving grace. Always have sugar on you. Have a medical ID band on you, because you never know who's there. And if you do faint, you're going to save yourself if you have these things on you.
Great. So I think we've probably covered pretty much everything that we want to say about hypos. I don't know if we've missed anything off that you want to mention, Jon-sel. Absolutely. And got a comment here from Screwshell, who says hypos can have insulin dosages or you over exercise while insulin is working, a mix of both or other factors. It can be fatal. An onset of hypo to diabetic coma can happen rather quickly. How far, I mean, you say you almost lost your life with a hypo, but how far has it got for you? How severe have your hypos been?
Really severe. I mean, in my show, I mentioned I had a landlord who came round. I'd run a bath. I just basically left it running. I was on my sofa naked. I passed out. My landlord came in, thought I was a drug addict, and thought I'd just been doing coke because he saw my needles. So I was taking Novo Rapid just with the disposable insulin pens. He turned the bath off. He ran off. He rang my flatmate. My flatmate said he needs sugar. He needs sugar. He needs sugar. I totally passed out. My flatmate had to call my dad. My dad, who lived miles away from me, had to call 999. The paramedics had to kick the door down. I'd passed out. Glucagon saved me. When I was found in the ditch, if it wasn't for the people passing by, I totally remember nothing. I just remember waking up in the back of the ambulance. I've had it probably about 4 or 5 times that have been that harsh. And it is scary. It's because I'm so hyperactive. I'm always on the move. I try and make sure I eat the right foods. But then again, I've done bad things in terms of giving myself, it's like Screwshell said, I've given myself too much insulin because I don't want to have high blood sugar. People have hypo fears. I have high blood sugar fear. So it is hard. And like I say, I am incredibly lucky. I'm grateful to have good friends who've supported me. But I am lucky. And I know not everybody is as lucky to have that luck on their side.
So, Jon-sel, thank you so much for joining me today on HAPS to talk about Hypo Awareness Week, your film, your show, and your general experience with hypos. So we've had a lot of interest in you in the comments section and what you're up to. So why don't you give everyone a quick rundown of where they can find you on the internet and find a bit more about you and what you're up to?
No worries. Right. My official website is officialjonsel.com. All the information's on there about my show, my film. But on socials, I'm on I live on Instagram. So my username is Diabetic Showbiz Shizzle. Twitter, T1 Showbiz Shiz. I'm on Facebook. If you ever want to know what I'm doing, I always talk about it. I've got my books and Hypo the Film are on Amazon Prime. And I'm always doing stuff. I'm always doing stuff for JDRF, Diabetes UK. I'm always promoting, talking about it. And if you've ever got any worries or any problems and you want to talk to me about them, I'm there, man. I'll shout you up, shout me up, do whatever you feel you want to do. I'll talk to you. I'll guide you. I'm here to help, man. Honestly, I don't like to see people on their own. I don't like to see people lacking confidence when living with type 1.
Lovely stuff. So we've got Creed of Man, who says, love to see this as a fellow T1D. And Sonia Torres, who says, interesting chat, thank you. But don't run away, folks. I kept a little special surprise for the end. I've got a new video out today talking about how my insulin pump broke and how I got it fixed. So I'm going to play that for you now. But Jon-sel, before you head off, thank you so much for joining us here on HAPS.
Thank you for having me, Jamie.
Have you.
Thank you for having me, my friend. Thank you ever so much.
No worries. See you soon. Okay,
See you
so
soon.
that was Jon-sel Gourkan, finding on the internet. He's all over the place, spreading awareness about type 1 diabetes too. And I'm going to be doing a little bit of that now. I'm going to play you my latest video, which is how my insulin pump broke. Here it is.